We have Mr. Rakesh. He is a dedicated volunteer at Maxability and a seasoned leader in the digital accessibility field. As someone driven by a deep passion for making digital platforms accessible to all, he's here to speak about how we can help build a truly inclusive future. So everyone, please welcome Mr. Rakesh.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. And let's get started without any ado. Let me start with few questions, and I'll try to see how you want to respond to them. How many of you work in the IT industry here? So you people are raising the hands. Thank you for that. I am blind, so that don't work for me. So can you say again, how many of you work in the IT industry? Say yes. A big sound. That means most of you. How many of you are from South India? A little less. Can speak Hindi? Little less. Now, are attending this event for the first time? Okay. How many of you had an injury in last 2 years? Less. How many of you are blind? So the question here, if you have seen, there are people in the IT industry, in this case, probably most of us. And as the questions go down, we are getting lesser responses. But at the end, a person with blindness, no one here. Which doesn't mean that no one in the world is having a challenge. There are people with blindness which we often don't think about. This talk is about not just people with blindness, but also to understand the other people whom we don't often look and how we can solve problems for them. Few more questions now. How many of you ordered food online? A lot of you. Booked a cab or an auto to come here? Many of you. Do online trading? Few. How many of you do all of this without seeing your screen? None of you. But there are a lot of people who does book their food online. When I ask my wife to go home, to her home, I do travel to office on cab day in and day out. I do trading online with one of the open source software. All of these I do without looking at my screen. I use a software called Screen Reader, a screen reading software, which means the software that you all are building are not just used by the people who have no disabilities. People with disabilities also use the products that you build. So now who am I? Am I just not the customer for all of you, but also a volunteer at Maxability? Maxability is an organization started as a blogger. I started as a blogger around in 2010 and writing blogs about digital accessibility. I did write about WCAG standards, the needs of people with disabilities, the standards, how to make the websites, mobile applications, designs accessible for people with disabilities. And I work as a senior product manager for accessibility at Adobe. That's my day job. So that's how I contribute to digital accessibility in my life. Also as a customer with disability who uses all these applications. You can reach out to me on Rakesh, Paladugula on LinkedIn. That's my full name on the screen, Rakesh, Paladugula. Few notes, what I have observed today. Namayatri, which I'm going to talk about a little later, and has a slide. Max was talking about the purple rides. I want to see a lot of those presentations with at least a slide talking about inclusion and accessibility going forward. That is one of the goals for me being here and talking with all of you to ensure that accessibility becomes integral part of what you do, like Namayatri. I'll talk more about it in the coming slides. And the second point I want to make for the FOSS organizers, in the initial note, the initial speaker, I'm not sure his name, but thank you for everything that you have spoken about in detail, except for one slide where he was talking about the contact details are here. Where is the problem? So whenever you have content that is important or pictures that are on the slides, ensure that you read them. One of the key components of this conference, I also appreciate the organizers on the other side, is they have specifically pointed out to the speaker saying that the slides need to be friendly for people with color blindness. But the spectrum is even more. As we grow, we'll learn together and ensure the presentations are accessible in the format they should be. So let's see some people who have disability for the reasons of privacy. I have put the names, not the exact ones, but I have a friend who works in a government organization. For the purpose of our memory, let us name her Stella. She works in a government organization and her day job includes filling in the forms. And many of us go to government organizations like, say, for example, KYCs or for here BBMP, One Bangalore, to have your Aadhaar updated or to fill in certain details, registrations, etc. Most of the times what these guys, the government office do, officers especially, is to fill in the data that we provide through our documentation and probably ask us to sign, put our thumb impression, etc. This person who works at the government office, who have to fill in these forms day in and day out, and unfortunately the applications that she uses are not accessible. And because of that, the time that she takes for filling out a form for a person, in general, for a person who does not have any disability takes say 3 minutes, this person have to take 5 to 6 minutes to fill in a form. That's not just frustration for her, because it is not friendly to the screen reader that she uses, but also frustrated customers, frustrated citizens who come to this government office to have their work done through these filling the forms. So when you make these forms accessible for Stella, it's not only making her life easier, and who can make the forms fillable within 3 minutes or within 2.5 minutes. I can bet my head and heart that if the forms are accessible, they can be made accessible, that they can be filled in at least as fast as what you all can do, or maybe a 5 to 10 seconds even faster than you. We can do a challenge next time when we are in the FOSS, maybe FOSS 5.0. So making the products accessible will save a lot of time, frustration, money, and a lot of other things. I technically have to have a screen ready demo. There are 2 links. For those who need, I will share this presentation, and probably you can look at these videos when you are available, when you want to do so. The another one whom I want to talk about is one of the grandfathers of my friend who's been losing his hearing capability. So when he is losing the hearing capability, one of his hobbies was to listen to the podcasts. So how many of you do listen to podcasts? Many of you. But have you ever had an experience, thought of experiencing, if the podcast has to be accessible, or someone who cannot hear, who have a hearing loss, who has difficulty hearing, how comfortable is it for them to have hearing those podcasts? Is there an alternative available for a person like John's grandfather who is losing his hearing capability as he is approaching age-old difficulties? So how do you make these possibilities really impactful for them? How do you make these products useful for them? And okay, who is having age-old difficulties? And a lot of us, maybe your parents, grandparents, you would have seen they would have developed cataracts and they have blurry vision, they lose visions as they grow older. And same as with the John's grandfather who is having age-old difficulties. He has to adjust the screen, the mobile screen or the computer screens to make the content readable, increasing the font sizes, increasing the icon sizes, making the contrasts bigger. Have you ever tried the high contrast mode available on your computers? Few. Yeah. So that helps a person who have low vision, like the person who is getting old, blurry vision. So if the products, software that we are creating need to be accessible, there has to be compatible with the high contrast modes or large fonts, large icon sizes that operating systems provide. Like all of you are talking about Linux as open source software. Do you know what is the screen reader that is available in the Linux operating system? There is a screen reader that helps blind programmers and blind people who uses Linux to use computers without seeing. Any clue? Orca. Orca is a screen reader that is built into Linux operating system, which is useful for blind programmers to use Linux and blind users to use Linux operating systems. So the operating systems will provide features that are supportive for people with disabilities, but we as the developers, the designers, to think about how these operating system accessibility features are enabling the people with disabilities to use their products. How is font resizing possible in the mobile app that you have created? Is the operating system, the iOS or Android, provides you the provision to enlarge the screen, provides you the opportunity to increase the font sizes, change the font styles, change the colors of the font? Are these changes that a user makes, is the product or the apps that we are creating are respecting those changes? So those are the things that we have to think about when we are creating applications for people in general and especially for people with disabilities. So it's not just me or Stella, but there are a lot of people who have these difficulties. For example, I can give you a very latest example. One of the current presidents who is supposed to be contesting in the upcoming elections in November 2024, I believe, has to take back his presidential candidature because he is losing one of the reasons is being his memory being challenged, and he was trolled, and then he has to take back his presidential candidate and has to announce the vice president to be the next presidential candidate. I think you get who am I talking about. Do you? Cool. Yeah. So it's not someone who is sitting at the corner of the country and having hearing difficulties or any disabilities or age-old challenges, but it does not stop impacting the most powerful presidents of the world if the difficulties come because of age. But the technology has the possibilities to empower these people with disabilities. I'm thinking about when I was putting these slides together, I was thinking like, why there's no tech available for him to at least be enabled when he was losing hope of the presidential candidate. Tech can do a lot of good, and tech can be the enabler for making these applications accessible, making his memory power even more stronger without having shown it to the public. The World Health Organization says 1.3 billion people have significant difficulties because of a disability. 1.3 billion is approximately 16% of world's population. What else is the largest market share than 16%? In 2020, there were 1 billion, there are 1 billion people above the age of 60, which is another maybe 13-14% of population who also will have disabilities, who also have challenges, we should not say disabilities, but age-old difficulties, and that contributes to inaccessible infrastructure and accessibility. Together, these brings up to 25% of the entire consumer capabilities. So this is not a smaller market that we want to lose. So that's the people's impact of how we are looking at the products, that applications that we create. So like the first thing that you would think about, the impact the people has, the empathy towards disability, the loyalty that they brings in when they are sticking up to the product. It is, as Max was talking about Namayatri and the purple rides, it wasn't so easy for us to move from the existing applications to a new application because of the habituation that we have, and some of these aggregator apps are accessible. It is not easy to move. And people with disabilities are, trust me, one of the most loyal customers who does not easily move away from the product if these products are accessible. There's a business impact as well. The spending capability of $6 trillion US, 6 trillion US spending capability of people with disabilities across the globe. This is something that the W3C, World Wide Web Consortium, has published a business impact a few years ago. The customer retention, if the applications are not accessible, it is likely that this is from the Foster recent article that says like 62% of people with disabilities easily tend to move away from a product if it isn't accessible and if there is a reliable alternative available. I am on one of the example very recently. I can name the bank. I use HDFC for past 15 years or more. And recently the new UI, the revamped UI has really made me frustrated using the application. I wasn't able to make a third-party transaction, which I was able to do until the new UI change. And because of the reason, I have to switch to another bank recently because of the frustration that I have. So it is easy to move to another accessible application if the products and websites and applications that we're creating, if they aren't accessible. The market growth, when I talk about the possibility of creating accessible applications and how you ensure these applications are accessible. Like when you create an application, one way is to have persons with disabilities or accessibility experts within your organizations testing, fixing, and making designs accessible. But you also may be looking at outsourcing these applications to vendors who are specialized in accessibility. These specialist accessibility services organizations has a business of valued at $538 million US, and it's expected to reach around $880 million US by 2030, and it is increasingly popular, and the legal landscape is also increasing. So that's the business impact. If you look at the case study, I don't probably need to talk about Namayatri much because we already had a conversation. This is a slide that I have not put in after I saw the agenda and seeing Max here coming here. But this was a slide that I have put together a few weeks ago. And the reason being, Namayatri has presented through Enable India, one of the non-profit organizations here in Bangalore. in our accessibility symposium that we have done in May. And they have talked about the large business impact because of the purple rides. And the impact, I think we can talk with the CEO of Namayatri more about this if you want to, is it's not the people with disabilities that are using these applications of the purple rides, but also the people who have age-old difficulties, old people, and also people who have the child, a single mother who is going with a child. Those are the people also using these applications. And that increases the purple ride and the capabilities there. There is a legal suit with another aggregator, which has just last week on 20th of August in the Delhi High Court have sent had a hearing and asked the aggregator to, you can probably look at the news articles, it's on August 28th, asked to audit their application in the next 3 months and give the report to the country. There were like 70 different organizations who got notices from the Commissioner of People with Disabilities from the Department of Social Justice, and the legal requirements has been becoming more and more important in India as well. But how do you make the applications accessible? There are standards called WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which are followed across the globe by World Wide Web Consortium. Currently the 2.2 version, which has perceivable, how you ensure these applications are perceived by the people, how they operate using a keyboard, using touch gestures, etc. Understandable, touching up with the people who have cognitive challenges, and robust, being able to be used by large applications, futuristic applications, etc. So perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. Sensory disabilities, mobility disabilities, cognitive disabilities, and getting ready for the future technology, if you have to look at it in that way. So let me go here. Just quickly about the accessibility symposium that we have done in May 2024 was the first one, and that's how I got connected with Kailash Nath from Zerodha, and who connected me to FOSS here, and want to give a shout out to Kailash for thanks for having me here today. And accessibility symposium, we are planning to do it every year here in Bangalore. This is where we want to have people with disabilities, the customers with disabilities, the tech companies, and accessibility experts together. That holistically brings to the spectrum, you know what you're building, you know for whom are you building, and you know who are the experts who can guide you through those journeys. So next time for the Accessibility Symposium 2025, would like you to come up here, come up to the session. Sure. accessibilitysymposium.com is the website. And the call to action for you all, once you go back, just test your application. If you have a web version of it, just try to test it with the keyboard. Is your application accessible for a keyboard only user? That's very, very simple, right? Unplug your mouse, just try to do a transaction or an activity or a use case just using a keyboard next time when you start doing your application. And with that, I will complete my session, and you want to reach out to me, Rakesh at maxability.co.in. Thank you very much.
Do we have any questions? There's one.
Any questions?
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Rakesh. My name is Mayuk. Thank you so much for sharing all these details with us. One question, how did you interact with these slides so flawlessly? Did you remember or memorize the content of the slides while interacting with those?
No, I use a screen reader just because I'm using my plugged in earphones. Thanks that many of you didn't find it. So if I turn it off,
Thank you.
um,
Thank you.
I think the speaker isn't connected, but yes, if someone who is nearby can hear it. Screen reader is the software that is again an open source software called non-visual desktop access, which is a open source software by NV Access, developed by two blind individuals in Australia. That's the open source software that I use.
Thank you so much for answering that for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayank.
Any more questions?
Hi, I'm Arvindan. So you said that you do trading as well. So it is really like there will be a lot of data that will be going through. So how do you interact with such application? I just need to know.
Yeah, data visualization is one of the problems that has not been solved, if I have to say frankly, as of today, across the globe. It is really challenging as you see a lot of data across different, I mean, it's not just in trading, but I also work with applications, the data analytics applications where data visualization is the key. Probably I'm not a good trader. I do equity a lot, but I use the trading applications without much of those data. And thanks for bringing that out. There might be organizations here working on those applications will also hear that opportunity to make it more accessible.
Thank you.
Thanks. By the way, there is a group that we all learn from each other on trading. As of today, very informally, there were around 240 blind individuals who use one of the popular open source built application for trading. So, lot of customers. Any more questions? Thanks, Arvind.
Excuse me, Rakesh sir.
Yes.
I have a question that comes with the hardware implementation. I had recently seen the dot watch made for blind people or deaf people to at least know what the time is.
Right.
And I was wondering whether perfect software implementation of accessibility is limited by the hardware implementation of it.
No. So I use Apple Watch. So it's just a sound, but I do this 5K runs and 100 days of step challenges. I'm on Strava. I'm probably becoming more a data enthusiast. I collect the data, post on social media. I love to do that. Like a lot of opportunities. It's not restricted to hardware if it is implemented in the synchronization with hardware with the software. Definitely a great question. There are a lot of kiosks that are coming in, like if you go to KFC or McDonald's or even to a railway station or an airport, kiosks are becoming a more important aspects of our lives. And in having accessibility into those applications is also a key factor when building software.
Thank you very much.
Yep.